I'm home, guys. Turns out I could come home early today after all. I also brought back some of your favorite cake, Sherry. Why are you guys ignoring me all the time? Who the hell do you think you are? Ignoring the person who provides everything you need to survive. My name is Allison Kobayashi, and I'm a 30-year-old housewife. At the time of this particular story, I was living together with my husband, Gideon, and my daughter, Sherry, who was in the first grade. Our family was very close, and we were happy every day. We went on trips together on weekends, and we always had dinner together, whether it was at home or somewhere outside on special occasions. Tragically, though, it didn't take long for our happy family to be destroyed. It seemingly all happened in the blink of an eye. One day, Sherry came home from school and suddenly shot herself in her room. This was definitely not like her, because every day she would normally exclaim, "I'm home," in that lustrous, energetic voice of hers, and we'd have a small snack together. But the fact that she went into her room without even saying anything at all made me suspect something must be wrong. I rushed to my daughter's room, but when I attempted to open the door, I discovered she'd locked it. My suspicions were pretty much confirmed by then, and convinced she needed someone to talk to. I knocked on the door and called out her name. "Sherry? Are you in there, sweetheart? What's going on? Did something happen at school?" I asked her, and she didn't respond, but I could hear her crying in her room. I came to believe this was the result of some kind of trouble at school. I kept on knocking on her door, calling to her as gently and compassionately as I could, hoping to get some kind of response. I know it sounds like I'm being annoyingly persistent, but you can't blame a mother worrying about her own daughter who could be crying alone in her room. A few minutes later, she came out of her room and she really was crying, and boy, oh boy, was she crying a lot. Her cheeks were completely drenched and warm to the touch, and snot was running out of her nose onto her lips. I feared the worst, and I almost started to cry myself, but I forced myself to keep my cool, hugged her, and listened to her story as she began to speak. Then, Sherry made a shocking statement. "Daddy was hugging a friend of yours, Mommy, in the parking lot of the big shop with all the food. Many people could see them. I saw them, but I don't know if they saw me." I was so surprised that I asked her for some more details. "My friend Tommy's mom picked me up from school today. Don't worry. I told her thank you many times, Mommy. And on the way home, we went past the big shop with all the vegetables and big boxes outside. I loved looking at all the colors, and I looked out the window of the car to look at the vegetables, and I saw Daddy and your friend together, Mommy. I wanted to open the window and say hello to them, but then they started hugging." She started to bawl again. Her sadness was so genuine and so pure that it twisted and wrenched my heart. "Did Tommy's mommy see them too?" "No, I don't think she saw them." I was about to cry as soon as I knew it was Daddy, but I held it in. "Mommy. Way to go, Sherry. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you, and I'm very sorry you feel so sad." So according to my daughter's testimony, Gideon was having an affair with one of my friends from Sherry's school. Since I was completely convinced our family was close and happy, I never dreamed he would ever have an affair, and I felt nothing but shame and apology that Sherry had seen the affair with her own eyes. I couldn't do anything but hug her. All I could do in that moment was to hug her, try my best to console her, apologize to her again and again and again. Eventually, I started to cry too. After a short while, Sherry calmed down, and I was thinking about starting to cook dinner when I received a message from Gideon. The message said he was going to come home late. I had one look at my phone and froze dead still. Sherry noticed and called out to me. "Mommy, what's wrong?" "Oh, nothing, honey. Daddy's just going to be home late." "Daddy's a big liar. I loved you so much, Daddy. Now I hate you so much. You hurt Mommy, and you made me very sad. I hate you." Sherry was utterly and completely furious, but the expression on her face was pure sadness. "How about we play a little game, sweetie? Let's play secret game. We're a team against Daddy, okay? Here are the rules. First, we don't tell Daddy about him hugging another woman. And second, Mommy will go do some detective work, and you won't worry about anything. Do you think we can win the game, darling?" I know that telling a child not to worry about anything isn't exactly the most ideal thing to do, but what else could I say, especially in that situation? That's all I could think of that was reassuring. We slept in the same bed that night, hugging each other and comforting each other. Gideon seemed to have come home later on. He didn't call out to us, nor did he say anything to us at all. He apparently went to work early the next day, because we never saw each other that morning. The next morning, I saw a now more recovered Sherry off to school, and then I ran to a trusted detective agency. I asked them to investigate a love affair against my husband, and they told me it would take about a month before they could give me any substantial results. If there was evidence that confirmed Gideon was having an affair, they promised to contact me before they whipped up the report. Thereafter, some time passed before I heard from them again. Not so long as an entire month, but it was certainly more than 2 weeks. Being together with my husband for that long, knowing that he was actively being unfaithful to his family, was nothing but agony. It was like running a marathon, knowing that I was heading straight into a thunderstorm. And when they would contact me, claiming they now had firm evidence to confirm a suspected affair, and I, in turn, would have to face up to whom he was having an affair with, I despised the notion that someone else would find about the affair because my husband was with one of my friends from Sherry's school. Even I hated having to know who the woman was, and the fact that it was Gideon who was persuading her to go out with him made me absolutely sick. I don't think I ever felt this uncomfortable and disgusted towards another human being. Sherry and I were so disgusted with Gideon that we played the secret game like true professionals. We did our best not to talk to him at all. Sherry actually stopped approaching her father altogether. Is she going through a bit of a rebellious period lately? It's a bit early, isn't it? Gideon never had a clue in the world and kept on saying carefree things like that. I was just so sick and tired of his existence. One day, while leading such a stressful life, I was contacted by the detective agency. I was both happy and scared to find out all the bad things my husband had done. The staff at the detective agency reminded me that this was only a draft, an interim, and that it wasn't to be taken too seriously just yet. I received some photographs in my email. By that point, I knew for sure that he really was cheating on me. And the photographs were all taken at the same supermarket where Sherry had first caught sight of them being unfaithful. I couldn't understand why they were hugging each other in the supermarket so often. I couldn't help but feel sick to my stomach once again. It felt worse than my morning sickness, which was already quite the doozy. And when I saw the woman in the photographs, I gawked at the screen, stunned and speechless. The woman, whom he was having an affair with, was none other than my best friend, Anna. Anna often came over to our house, and Sherry liked her very much, so much so that she considered her an aunt. Whenever she came over, Sherry ran up to her and asked her to play, and then they would have lots of fun together. Sherry's favorite thing to do with her Auntie Anna was going to theme parks together. Of all the women that could have been having the affair with my husband, she was literally the last person I was expecting. I just couldn't believe what I saw, and the fact that Sherry was the first to see the crime itself. Oh, Sherry darling, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Needless to say, I was downright furious with Gideon. I was able to find out about the current status of the affair through the interim report that the detective agency, but they informed me that it would take a little more time to prepare a report eligible for the court. Therefore, I didn't question Gideon about the affair, and I was left with no other choice but to live with him as if nothing was happening. I could not forgive my husband for cheating on me, but I thought that it was not good for me to be a single parent for Sherry's sake. However, she was asking me questions about her father's affair, and as days went by, it became increasingly difficult to keep everything from her. So eventually, I decided to tell her. She may still be in the first grade, but she was the one who first had a clear understanding of what was going on. She first uncovered the affair after all. I hate Daddy for cheating on you, Mommy. He hurt you, and he hurt me too. I hate him. I want to be with you, Mommy. Please don't make me stay with Daddy. As she said that, she hugged me very tightly. I hugged her back tightly too. I could no longer live with the husband who betrayed us, and we can no longer live together as a family. Even if I stay at home like this, it won't be good for our future as a married couple, nor will have a positive impact on Sherry's future. So right then, I set my mind on getting a divorce. From that day, it would take about another month before the report from the detective agency arrived, but Sherry and I actively began to avoid any form of contact with Gideon. We didn't have any conversations with him. We didn't invite him out on any family trips on the weekends, and we never asked how his days at work were. Both of us began to see Gideon as something that wasn't human, more like an abomination that was going to be terminated very soon. I made an interesting new discovery that night, that someone you loved once upon a time can appear as something completely aberrant when you really can't accept their existence anymore. Gideon started coming home at different times every day. There were days when he was very busy and worked late. Some days he came home on time. Of course, my husband didn't know that I was investigating his affair, so I had to treat him as usual, but I couldn't have a conversation with him, and nor could Sherry, because of how much we despised him after what he did. Even during the meals, day after day, conversation was zilch, and often, not even a single word was uttered. One day, I received a message from Gideon saying that he had to work late, but he came home earlier than I expected. My darling Sherry and I were having a nice talk over dinner, but when Gideon came home all of a sudden, our conversation came to an instant halt. I actually felt the air in the room get colder by a couple degrees. I'm home, guys. Turns out I could come home early today after all. I also brought back some of your favorite cake, Sherry. Why the hell are you guys ignoring me all the time? By this point, he was talking to us pretty loudly, but of course, we kept on ignoring him. Where the hell is my food? He was getting furious, but of course, we couldn't care less and paid no attention to his exhilarating tantrum. Why? Because he said he had to work late, so I didn't prepare anything for him? In any case, I was sure that by I could come home early today meant that his girlfriend couldn't make it to their little romantic soiree together. Who the hell do you think you are, ignoring the person who provides everything you need to survive? As he shouted these words, he slammed his fist onto the table. The shockwave made the table bounce into the air for a split second, and as a result, a couple dishes fell off. The dishes shattered against the wooden floor, spilling a bunch of food all over the place, and making the floor what appeared to be vomit of a drunken crackhead just outside a smoky downtown jazz bar. And still, we ignored him. We ignored him for so long that he actually got scared. Wait a minute. Hang on. I'm not invisible, am I? I almost laughed when he said this as he began to place his hands all around his body. After I confirmed that he wasn't see-through, he still went on endeavoring to get something out of us. But of course, we ignored him. You're mad because I didn't come home on time? I'm sorry, honey. I guess I should just get my own dinner. I'll just leave the cake on the kitchen counter, okay? He's saying such things, still feeling around all over his body, trying to reconfirm that he really wasn't invisible, but I never wavered in ignoring him. No matter how many times he could check, there's no damn way he'd be transparent. And that's only because we were simply ignoring him, treating him as though he didn't exist. Hey, Sherry, sweetie, how about going to the amusement park next weekend? I'm thinking about buying some tickets. It's been a long time we last went to that place, hasn't it? He was trying so hard to get her attention, but she was being such a good girl. Gideon went on talking, trying to get our attention back, and frankly, I wondered how in the world he could talk to us when we were both considering him dead to us. Hey guys, I'm begging you, answer me. Why are you two treating me as if I don't even exist? Did I do something wrong? Come on, guys. Tell me, please. Am I on my way to heaven? Maybe you can't even see me for some reason. Maybe I'm something beyond invisible. Maybe I don't even exist anymore. Or maybe I have some kind of superpower. I could be the leader of the Justice League right now. I can't tell you how many times I've had to hold back my laughter because he's just been talking about hilarious nonsense to himself whilst being ignored for so long. Perhaps he really got scared because of how much we weren't paying attention to him because he bolted out of the house. I am still alive, right? Is the mysterious statement that he left behind. Sherry and I laughed. Daddy thought he was a ghost. He looked so funny. He almost made me laugh. Darling, great job ignoring him. I think you deserve a piece of that cake. We got up from the table laughing, and we laughed and laughed as we washed our dishes and helped ourselves to some slice of cake. He doesn't think we know that he's cheating on us. He merely got frightened and went out to see if he was still alive. Perhaps he assumed that if he had tried to stay at home, he would eventually think he really had become a spirit of sorts. By the time 2 weeks had passed since my husband ran from the house, my daughter and I were living happily in a traitor-free environment, without anyone to suspect of foul play, and without source of negative emotions whatsoever. And then the papers arrived from the detective agency. I paid a visit to the lawyer's office and asked for a lawyer to help us in a court case against Gideon. After we made sure that all the evidence was in place with a professional's help, we began the divorce proceedings quickly. The service of the lawyers were absolutely fantastic and things went very smoothly. All in one day, they prepared the documents, walked me through the legal procedure, and even guided me as I signed them right then and there. It was sent to my husband and Anna, and they informed me that it would arrive to their doorstep in 2 or 3 days. Since I didn't know where my husband was at the moment, we made sure the documents would arrive at his job and at his parents' house. 2 days after we sent the content certificate, Anna suddenly contacted me. The content certified letter specifically stated the receiver not to contact the sender directly, but perhaps she failed to notice it. I didn't want to answer the phone, but I thought that Sherry would be concerned after a while if it kept ringing, so I decided to answer. When I did, it came across way too loud and clear through the phone that she was pissed off beyond all recognition. "What the hell are you doing demanding alimony from me, Allison? You're out of your mind. You're crazy. You're bonkers. Why would you ever think I wouldn't sue you? Because your husband forced himself on me? I have no obligation to pay you anything. I actually want alimony as much as you do." She didn't seem to be cooperative regarding the demands for alimony, but I kept a calm mind as I talked to her. "I mean, perhaps he did force himself onto you, but you still gave voluntary consent to have a romantic relationship with him. The simple fact that you accepted his proposal, forceful or not, makes you just as guilty as he. And additionally, the fact that you've been in a relationship for so long makes everything crystal clear. This was never a one-way street. You also had feelings for him, which is why you never backed out of the affair, because it was too late, and that's why you're getting demands to pay alimony. You betrayed my daughter's trust, Anna. Do you have any idea how much pain she's been going through? He told me that if I refused him, he would destroy my relationship with you. Ironic, isn't it? Because it's destroyed anyway. If you truly felt like he was backing you into a corner, allowing you no way out, you should have talked to me about it. You've been actively having an affair with him for 10 whole years. That excuse is not going to convince anyone. How do you know about that?" That furious Anna was now nowhere to be seen. I could definitely hear her voice shaking now. "Yes, you heard right. Gideon and Anna had actively been having an affair for 10 whole years, and there's firm evidence supporting the conclusion. When the detective agency was doing their investigation, I'd also asked them to find out how long he'd been having the affair. To do so, they had to investigate his belongings. While my husband was away for work one day, a staff member from the detective agency was scheduled to visit my home. They asked me to lead them to my husband's room, and I helped with the search. After perhaps 20 minutes, we found his old computer, which he had replaced in his closet. After repairing the computer and recovering the data, it was discovered that the computer contained emails sent between Gideon and Anna. The exchange went on for years, with the oldest recorded message sent by Anna, no less, on June 6, 2013, and that was 10 years ago. When I told Anna all of this, she started to bawl on the phone. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for hurting you and for hurting darling Sherry. I promise I'll make sure you never see me again. I'll keep apologizing until you forgive me, and I'll do whatever you say. Please, I'm begging you. Please don't ask me to pay alimony." In her voice, I could literally hear her getting down on her knees as she begged me. I finally had the chance to raise my voice to my best friend, who had less common sense than a drowned codfish, by pleading me to have merciful and hold off demanding alimony for her crime. "Apologize to me for the rest of your life? Don't ever contact me or have anything to do with me or my daughter ever again. You destroyed our family, and now what? You want me to spare poor little Anna of her heinous deed and decide not to demand compensation? Don't you dare do anything other than what I'm about to ask you. First, stay out of our damn lives, and second, take responsibility for what you've done and pay well for it." I yell at her. I couldn't believe she was ever my friend, but then she starts to tell me why she doesn't want me to demand alimony from her. "Last year, both of my parents were killed in a car accident, leaving my baby brother, who's 17 now, without any guardian to support him. His grandparents were retired in Australia, and I'm literally all he has left, and I want him to go to college. I'm working every day to save up for his school fees, and I can't afford to pay alimony. I know apologizing won't be of any use, and I know you'll never forgive me, but I simply can't afford to pay you alimony without sacrificing my brother's future. Please, Allison. We've been best friends for so long. We did so many things together in school, particularly matching costumes and stuff like that, and we had a lot of fun, didn't we? Who would have thought we'd also have matching husbands? And after that, the same stupid bullshit of begging for my forgiveness. I was sick of her voice. I was sick of her begging. I was sick of her. You were cheating on my husband and destroyed our happy family, and now that your own family is in trouble, you won't dare take responsibility? You're an adult, for crying out loud. Freaking take responsibility for what you've done. I will apologize for the rest of my life, and I will do whatever it takes. Just anything but paying alimony, please? Please, please. Even after everything I'd said, she still wouldn't back down. I was just about to vomit hearing her whiny, pathetic voice crying the whole time, so I said one last thing before hanging up the phone. I know that for those who engage in an unfaithful affair, should the victim request it, the perpetrators must be responsible and pay alimony accordingly. This is common knowledge, and yet you never try to stop the affair, so the responsibility is yours to bear. I expect you to face up to it. I never heard from her again after that. Soon after that call, I got another call, this time from my husband. My husband was exactly like Anna. He told me stupid bullshit about how she forced him to go out with her, and that he couldn't say no, and so on and so forth. Blah, blah, blah. I never spoke a word and just hung up during his sentence. I was also feeling a little under the weather and fell asleep on the couch. While I was asleep, Sherry had apparently called my parents from my phone, and I explained the situation to them. By the time I woke up, Sherry and my parents had cooked for me and were watching me sleep. Sherry was snoozing too, with that cute little stuffed bunny doll she loved. My parents explained what their granddaughter did, and I cried because my daughter had grown up so much. We were spending such a wonderful time together as a family when all of a sudden, out of the blue, Gideon, who had lost so much weight since I last saw him, unlocked the front door and trudged inside. I don't know how long it had been since we had seen each other, but he looked so different. None of us knew who he was, and because he had changed so much, we saw him as a suspicious person. The first time Sherry saw him, she got so scared and started to cry. Sherry, sweetie, it's me, your daddy. Calling me a prowler is cruel. So cruel. He looked like he was about to cry too, then he started talking, his voice cracking and his legs shaking. I saw the content certificate. I'm so sorry. I swear on my life, I will never do this again. I just don't want a divorce. That's all I want to talk about. I know you don't love me anymore, and I know I can't bring you to love me again, but I want to see my darling Sherry grow up as much as you do, Allison. He was sobbing by this point, but it's not taking any effect on me. I'm sorry. I can't believe you anymore. Not only have you lost my love, you've lost my trust forever. I just can't anymore. Please, please, please. My husband was on his knees. My father spoke up. I suppose you understand the gravity of what you've done, son. I demand you stay away from my daughter and granddaughter. They mean more to me than life itself, and I won't have any scummy bastard trying to ruin their happiness. His voice was terrifying. Gideon went a few shades paler and tried to run away out the front door, but he turned around once more and looked at Sherry, who was wiping her eyes and sniffing snot from her lips. Sherry, my dearest, you need your daddy, right? You want your daddy to stay, right? He was actually trying to appeal to her, but then Sherry finished him off. Who is this old man, Mommy? I don't want him in my house. Gideon then left the house in tears. After that, the divorce was finalized through my lawyers. Sherry and I moved back into my parents' house. The school district was the same, so fortunately, my daughter's environment didn't change much. My husband couldn't afford to pay the rent for the big apartment anymore, and after selling it, he moved into a dirt cheap flat somewhere on the outskirts of the city. At work, word somehow got out that he had divorced his wife because of an affair. As a result, all the female employees lost their trust in him, and they all stopped talking to him. Gideon became increasingly lonely in the company. His reputation eventually became one as an unfaithful, untrustworthy employee, and thus, getting promoted to greatness was now a dream of the internally condemned. His salary never went up, and his superiors never gave him any challenging work or projects to handle. It seems Gideon doesn't consider his job to be very rewarding anymore, and now his personal and professional life both seem to be in limbo. As for Anna, she had had to earn money for her baby brother, who was apparently at the top of his school for his studies. He showed a lot of potential for a scholarship, and due to his parents passing in a car accident, Anna was responsible for providing the money that paid for her brother's tuition and other miscellaneous school fees. But now, she has to pay alimony for what she did. She simply didn't have enough, so she changed her job, and now she is working nonstop. Eventually, her brother found out about her affair and now, he won't talk to her anymore. Just pay me the money and I'll be fine. I really despise an unfaithful, dirty woman like you, Anna. I scorn you, is what he told her before he went away to university somewhere in a rural area. Anna was left with her own misery, paying for her brother's school and paying me the alimony, never getting a chance to have anything to do with her darling brother again. As for Sherry and I, we are now living very happily in her grandparents' home. I've started a new job myself, and although I'm in a new, unfamiliar environment, I'm gonna do my best to make enough money for my daughter's bright future. Sherry's seen some traumatic things in life at such an early age, but ever since she started spending more time with her angelic grandparents, she's getting more energetic and happy with every passing day. From now on, I'm going to do everything in my power to protect her from negative experiences and make sure that she lives the happy. Let me tell you something about perfect marriages. They're like glass houses, beautiful to look at, but one stone throw away from shattering into a million pieces. And I should know because I was living in one, or at least, that's what everyone thought. My husband, Alex, and I were the golden couple, living in our dream home with 2 cars in the driveway and smiles that never seemed to fade. To the outside world, we had it all. But beneath that gleaming surface, I was suffocating, craving something, anything, that felt real and raw. It all changed at a work conference in Vegas. That's where I met him, Jake. A guy who was the exact opposite of everything my life represented. He was adventurous, spontaneous, and had a wildness in his eyes that I couldn't resist. From the moment we talked, I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help myself. The connection was electric, undeniable. We ended up spending the night talking, and one thing led to another. Before I knew it, I was caught up in the whirlwind of an affair. It felt like a breath of fresh air in my suffocating life, a secret escape that belonged only to me. But secrets have a way of making themselves known, don't they? Alex started to notice. Little things at first, late nights at work, my phone buzzing more than usual. He didn't say anything, but the air between us grew heavy with unasked questions and unsaid accusations. I could see the suspicion in his eyes, feel it in the way he'd watch me, but he never found any concrete evidence. Or so I thought. The day everything came crashing down started like any other. Alex was scrolling through our shared iPad when he stumbled upon a message I thought I had deleted. A message from Jake that left nothing to the imagination. I watched the color drain from Alex's face as he read it, the silent horror in his eyes turning into a storm. The confrontation that followed was explosive. Accusations flew. Harsh words were exchanged, and the perfect image of our marriage shattered right there on our living room floor. Instead of demanding a divorce, Alex did something I never expected. He gave me an ultimatum, a chilling promise that he would make me regret what I had done, but not in the ways I feared. No, he was too clever for that. You'll see, he said with a coldness that made my blood run cold. I'll make sure you never forget the mistake you made. The gravity of my situation didn't fully hit me until later. Alex's words hung over me like a dark cloud, a constant reminder that the storm was far from over. I was trapped in a game of psychological warfare with the man I once promised to spend my life with, and I had no idea how to escape it. My affair, which had started as a thrilling escape, had turned into my biggest nightmare, and I was left wondering if there was any way out of the mess I had made. In a world where I once felt loved and secure, I now tread on a thin ice of paranoia and isolation. My husband's silent war against me had escalated far beyond my wildest fears, morphing my life into a living nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It started subtly, with my credit cards being declined and my invitations to social gatherings suddenly drying up. At first, I told myself it was a misunderstanding, a glitch in our finances, or perhaps I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew. This was his retaliation, his way of tightening the noose around my freedom, making me feel trapped in a life that no longer recognized me as its owner. Then came the disappearances. One morning, my grandmother's ring, the one item I cherished above all else, was gone. vanished without a trace. Next, it was photos from our honeymoon, disappearing from the walls and albums as if they were mere figments of my imagination. Each loss was a silent scream from my husband, a reminder of the control he wielded over me, stripping away pieces of my identity and history with surgical precision. But nothing prepared me for the day my secret was dragged into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. An anonymous email had circulated among our family and friends, detailing my affair with such accuracy it left no room for doubt or denial. The shame that followed was suffocating, a scarlet letter branded on my chest by the very person who vowed to protect me. My husband's face remained impassive amidst the storm, a perfect portrait of betrayal clothed in feigned ignorance. The legal maneuvers were the next blow, a punch that knocked the wind out of me. He had gone to the courts, not with divorce papers as one might expect, but with a petition to freeze our assets, citing my financial infidelity as cause. My access to our joint accounts, my lifeline, was severed with a stroke of a pen, leaving me financially paralyzed and at his mercy. As if to add insult to injury, my car was vandalized one night. The tires slashed, the paintwork keyed with vicious intent. There was no proof, no evidence to link him to the crime, but the message was clear as day. He was marking his territory, showing me that there was no aspect of my life he couldn't reach, no safe haven left for me. The assault on my personal life was brutal, but the attack on my professional life was the coup de grace. I arrived at work one day to find my emails deleted and my projects sabotaged, my reputation in tatters. The demotion followed shortly after, a public reprimand for mistakes I hadn't made. My career, once a source of pride and independence, had been systematically dismantled, leaving me vulnerable and exposed. In the midst of this chaos, the most personal betrayal came to light. My clothes no longer fit, altered to hang loose on my frame, mocking me. My beauty products, replaced with damaging substitutes that left my skin irritated and my hair dull. It was a direct attack on my self-esteem, a cruel reminder that I was no longer the owner of my body or my self-worth. Sitting alone in the wreckage of my life, I couldn't help but wonder how I had arrived at this juncture. The love that once bound us had been weaponized, turning my husband into an adversary whose capacity for vengeance knew no bounds. Each day brought a new humiliation, a fresh wound, leaving me to navigate a labyrinth of despair with no end in sight. The man I had married, the life we had built together, had become unrecognizable, a twisted reflection of the vows we once exchanged. In his quest for revenge, he had reduced our marriage to a battlefield, and I, a casualty of a war one never chose to fight. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this so far. If you do, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really helps me out and lets me know you appreciate the content. Also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing is a great way to stay updated with all the latest videos and to be part of our growing community. It's quick, it's free, and it ensures you won't miss out on any upcoming content. So go ahead, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support means a lot and keeps this channel going. Thanks for watching. Just when you think you've hit rock bottom, life hands you a shovel and tells you to keep digging. That's exactly where I found myself, standing in the wreckage of what used to be my life, my heart, and my home. My last hope, the man I thought could be my refuge, had turned his back on me. Jake, my lover, the person I'd turned to in my darkest hour, had been swayed by my husband's manipulations. The look in his eyes was one-eyed, come to know all too well, pity mixed with fear. He came to me, Jake confessed, his voice barely a whisper. He made it clear, I can't see you anymore. I'm sorry. Just like that, the last thread of hope I clung to was severed. I returned home, or at least tried to. The locks had been changed, my belongings piled outside like garbage, and there he was, my husband, standing at the window, watching the fallout of his revenge with a cold detachment. I tried to reason with him, my voice breaking as I pleaded for a semblance of mercy. Please, let's just end this. I'm sorry, truly sorry, I begged. But his response was as chilling as the winter air. You made your bed, was all he said before disappearing from view. There I was, homeless, heartbroken, and utterly defeated. But as I sifted through the remnants of my life scattered on the lawn, a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Sarah, a friend from my past, someone I hadn't seen in years, stood before me with a look of determination. I heard about what's been happening. I think I can help you, she said, extending her hand. It was a lifeline, one I grasped without hesitation, not just because I was desperate, but because her arrival felt like fate intervening. As we sat in a dimly lit coffee shop, Sarah revealed the reason for her sudden reappearance. She had a history with my husband, a piece of his past he'd gone to great lengths to bury. He's not the man you think he is, she warned, her voice heavy with a secret that soon unfolded. Turns out, my husband's vendetta wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control, something he'd exercised over someone very close to Sarah years ago. Armed with this new knowledge, a plan began to take shape. It was risky, potentially dangerous, but it was a chance to turn the tables, to fight back against the man who had made it his mission to destroy me. With each move, the stakes grew higher, but so did my resolve. Sarah and I worked in the shadows, uncovering evidence, rallying allies, and slowly but surely, we began to see cracks in my husband's armor. The battle between us became a chess game, each of us trying to outmaneuver the other. But with every move he made, I was one step ahead, thanks to Sarah's insight. It was a war of wits, a test of endurance, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was winning. But as anyone who's ever played chess knows, the game isn't over until it's over. My husband, realizing he was losing ground, launched a counteroffensive that was personal and cruel. Yet, despite the escalating attacks, the fear that once paralyzed me began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination to reclaim my life and my dignity. This chapter in my life was far from over, but for the first time, I wasn't facing it alone. With Sarah by my side and the truth as my weapon, I was ready to fight back, to challenge the darkness with a light of my own making. The battle ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was no longer the same woman who had watched her life crumble. I was stronger, braver, and, most importantly, I was not alone. The day it all came crashing down wasn't marked by thunderstorms or ominous clouds. It was just a regular Tuesday, sunny with a chance of devastation. I found myself in the eye of the storm, my life's drama unfolding for the world to see. In the last place I ever wanted to be, the center of attention at a local cafe, our private agony on public display. It started with a whisper, a murmur that rippled through the crowded room, gaining momentum until it reached a fever pitch. My husband, the mastermind of my undoing, stood at the opposite end, a cold, hard smile on his face as he began to unravel the tapestry of lies and secrets we had woven together. The audience, our friends, family, and even strangers, hung on every word, their gazes shifting between us, a spectacle they couldn't resist. But the knife that cut the deepest wasn't held by my husband. It was the betrayal of my closest friend, Anna. She stepped forward, her eyes avoiding mine, as she corroborated his version of events, adding fuel to the fire with her own grievances against me. The hurt from her betrayal was a physical pain, a blow that left me reeling and questioning every moment we had shared. How long had she been conspiring with him? How could I have been so blind? The final confrontation was a blur of accusations, pleas, and ultimatums. I stood my ground, demanding my freedom, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. That's when he revealed his trump card, a piece of information so damaging, so utterly destructive, it left me with no choice but to capitulate. The details don't matter now. What does is the outcome. I was defeated, not by the strength of his argument, but by the weight of my own choices. I left the cafe with nothing but the clothes on my back and a soul heavy with loss. My departure from the town was a quiet affair, unnoticed by those who had once been a part of my life. The drive away from everything I had known was a journey through a landscape as barren as my heart, each mile a step further from my past and closer to an uncertain future. Starting over wasn't just about finding a new place to live, it was about rebuilding myself from the ground up. The town I chose was small, unremarkable, a place where nobody knew my name or my story. But the scars of my past were not so easily left behind. They haunted my steps, a constant reminder of the life I had lost and the person I had been. Just when I thought I had reached the limits of my loneliness, fate intervened in the form of a familiar face from a chapter of my life I thought had been closed forever. It was Mike, an old friend from college, someone who had known me before my marriage, before my world had turned upside down. Seeing him was like glimpsing a sliver of sunlight through dark clouds, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there are threads of hope, however fragile. Our encounter was brief, a chance meeting that opened the door to a conversation filled with memories of a simpler time. Mike offered me something I hadn't expected, understanding and a sense of belonging, a reminder that not all was lost. It was a small step, but in the vast desert of my new reality, it was a sign that perhaps, just perhaps, there was a path forward, one that might lead me out of the shadows and into the light. The moment of realization hit me like a cold wave, washing over the remnants of my past life with a clarity that was as painful as it was liberating. There I was, sitting in the quiet of a life I hardly recognized, the din of my past actions echoing in the silence. It was in this stillness that I understood the vicious cycle I had been a part of, a cycle of betrayal and revenge that had ensnared not just me but everyone around me. The cost of my actions, once dismissed as the price of seeking what I thought I deserved, now stood before me, a towering debt I could never repay. Acceptance is a bitter pill to swallow, especially when it's laced with the realization of one's own folly. I had danced on the edge of a precipice, blind to the precipitous fall that awaited. But as the dust settled and the adrenaline of my escape waned, I found myself facing a new dawn with a resolve that was born from the ashes of my former life. I vowed to rebuild, not in an attempt to reclaim what was lost, that was a ship that had long since sailed, but to forge something new from the lessons learned in the fire of my undoing. My story, once whispered in the corridors of my existence, became a cautionary tale, a somber melody that played in the background of the lives I had touched. The whispers grew into rumors, and the rumors into a narrative that served as a stark reminder of the price of infidelity and the dark shadow cast by revenge. It was a legacy I had never intended to leave, a mark on the world that was both a warning and a testament to the complexity of human emotions and the consequences of our choices. Years later, the ripples of my actions continued to make themselves known, manifesting in ways I could never have anticipated. Lives that had once intersected with mine, however briefly, were altered in courses subtle and profound, a butterfly effect born from the chaos of my making. It was a sobering reminder of the interconnectedness of our lives, of how deeply we can impact one another without ever realizing the full extent of our influence. Then came the final message from my husband, a cryptic note that arrived out of the blue, its contents a puzzle that left me pondering the depths of his intentions and the extent of his planning. Had his actions been a carefully orchestrated symphony, each note played with precision to lead to this moment? Or was it a final acknowledgement of the battle we had waged, a battle in which there were no winners, only survivors? The ambiguity of his words left me in a limbo of interpretation, a place where answers were as elusive as the shadows at dusk. In the quiet reflection that followed, I came face to face with the architect of my downfall, myself. My quest for excitement, for something more than the life I had been given, had led me down a path of destruction. It was a hard truth to accept, the acknowledgement that the chaos of my life was not merely a series of unfortunate events, but the result of choices I had made, each step leading me further away from the person I thought I was. And so, I live in anonymity now, a shadow among shadows, my story a mere footnote in the lives of those who moved on. From my secluded vantage point, I hear of my husband's continued success, a reminder that life goes on, with or without us. In this solitude, I found a peace of sorts, a quiet acceptance of the impermanence of all things and the understanding that we are but actors on a stage, playing our parts until the curtain falls. In the quiet aftermath of a life once lived in the fast lane, I found myself at a crossroads, staring down the path of redemption with a heart heavy with regret. It was in this solitude, this exile from the life I once knew, that I realized my story could serve as a beacon, a warning to others standing on the precipice of choices that could shatter their worlds as mine had been shattered. So, I started to write, pouring my heart and my mistakes onto the page with a raw honesty that left me exposed but hopeful that my tale could spare even one soul from the agony of betrayal and the bitter taste of revenge. As the words flowed, a purpose began to crystallize, a mission to guide others through the murky waters of temptation and the consequences that follow. It was a purpose born from pain, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my own making, and it gave me a reason to face each day with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I dedicated my life to helping others navigate the complexities of relationships, to recognize the signs of discontent, and to find constructive ways to address them before they spiraled into destruction. Then, as fate would have it, a turning point arrived, wrapped in an opportunity that forced me to confront the demons of my past head-on. An invitation to speak at a conference, to share my story with a room full of strangers, each grappling with their own battles. It was a chance at closure, but the thought of standing before them, laying bare my failures and my sins, was a daunting prospect that threatened the fragile peace I had built. The choice before me was clear yet complicated: to step into the light and expose the scars of my past in the hope of healing others, or to remain in the shadows, safe but stagnant. After much soul-searching, I chose the former, driven by a newfound conviction that my experiences, as harrowing as they were, could pave the way for healing, understanding, and perhaps even prevention for others. The conference was a crucible, a trial by fire that tested every ounce of my resolve. I stood before them, my voice steady but my hands trembling, and shared the journey of my downfall and the hard-earned lessons that came with it. The most poignant of these was forgiveness, especially the act of forgiving oneself. It was a lesson that had taken me years to learn, a realization that the path forward was paved with self-compassion and the understanding that we are all, at our core, fallible beings capable of change. In the aftermath of my confession, the reckoning came. Faces from my past, those I had hurt and those who had witnessed my fall, approached me with words of understanding, of hurt, and of tentative forgiveness. It was a moment of raw emotion, a blend of pain and healing that left me both drained and inexplicably whole. Among them was an offer, unexpected and laden with potential, a chance to collaborate on a project aimed at relationship healing, to use my story and my insights to help couples on the brink of collapse. It was an opportunity that came with its own set of challenges and conditions, a path that would once again place me in the public eye, under scrutiny and judgment. But it was also a chance to make a tangible difference, to turn the tide of my legacy from one of caution to one of hope. Accepting the offer was a leap of faith, a step onto a road less traveled that promised not redemption but the possibility of contribution, of making amends through action and intent. It was a decision that cemented my journey from the depths of despair to the precipice of a new beginning, one where the lessons of the past shaped the promise of the future. In a life punctuated by chaos, making the decision to embrace my future was like stepping into a storm, uncertain if I'd find shelter or be swept away. This choice wasn't made lightly. It came from a place of desperation, a realization that the only way out of the darkness was to walk through it, one step at a time. My journey towards redemption began not with fanfare, but with a quiet resolve, a whisper in the heart that spoke of the long road ahead. The path was anything but straight. It wound through landscapes of doubt and fear, each turn revealing challenges I hadn't anticipated. Yet, amidst these trials, there were moments of unexpected grace, glimpses of light during these times that I found support in the most unexpected places. Strangers became confidants, their own stories of struggle and triumph weaving into the tapestry of my journey, reminding me that none of us walk this path alone. Together, we built a new community, a collective of souls bound by the shared experience of rising from the ashes of our pasts. But just as hope began to take root, a setback loomed large on the horizon, a challenge that threatened to undo all the progress I had made, forcing me to confront the very demons I sought to escape. It was a test of everything I had learned, a moment that demanded reflection and a reevaluation of my strategies and motivations. The temptation to retreat, to fall back into old patterns, was a siren call that I fought with every fiber of my being. The breakthrough, when it came, was as unexpected as it was profound. In facing my challenges head-on, I discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed. This milestone was more than just an achievement. It was a validation of my journey, a sign that redemption was not just a distant dream but a reality within my grasp. It was a reminder that the darkest nights often lead to the brightest dawns. Amidst this journey of self-discovery, a revelation came to light, shedding new understanding on the actions of my husband. It was a truth that cut deep, unraveling the narrative I had clung to and offering a new perspective on our shared history. This clarity was a double-edged sword, providing liberation from my past, yet exposing the raw wounds that had yet to heal fully. In a twist of fate that bordered on poetic justice, I learned that my husband's downfall was not my doing but the result of actions taken by someone we both had underestimated. This unexpected act of revenge, while not my wish, served as a stark reminder of the intricate web of consequences spun from our choices. It was a moment that underscored the unpredictable nature of vengeance and the ways in which it can return to haunt us all. The dramatic conclusion of my story was not written in the stars, but in the scars that marked my soul, a testament to the destructive power of vengeance and the price of seeking retribution over understanding. As I stood amidst the ruins of what was and what could have been, I faced an irrevocable loss, a chasm in my life that could never be filled. Yet, even in this moment of profound sorrow, there was a sense of release. The chains that had bound me to my past were broken, not by the actions of others, but by my own journey through the darkness. In the end, I was left to forge a path in a world irrevocably altered by my choices, a world where the shadows of yesterday lingered but no longer defined my way forward. This chapter, like those that came before, was a mosaic of pain and beauty, of loss and discovery. It was a reminder that the journey of redemption is not a destination but a continual process of becoming, of shedding the weight of our past to embrace the limitless